Ah, 'tis great to get back into reviewing again, and with such an entertaining, feel-good episode as well. We first got word about this last year when Lena Hull made the announcement on her Twitter, with Amy Keating-Rogers following suit that next day. And I was really looking forward to seeing what sort of music they'd come up with, since it isn't often we get a Broadway-level actress lending her voice to MLP. And sure enough, the SDCC animatic did not disappoint, thus hyping up the episode even more. So with all this build-up and all this waiting, and even the news that this may very well be Amy Keating-Rogers' final episode in the entire series, was it all worth it? Yeah, I think it was. This is certainly the sort of story we've come across in many, many different kinds of media before, along with a stuck-up manager character who really isn't breaking any new boundaries. And I can understand why that might turn a few people off, even just a bit. But I, for one, felt very satisfied with the episode as a whole. The story begins with Applejack and the rest of the main six setting up for a charity concert, when Pinkie Pie announces the arrival of... Countess Coloratura! Yeesh, what a mouthful. And apparently Applejack remembers a very similar pony from her youth. Insert over-the-top adorableness here. Seriously, every time we get a flashback for the main six, we get bombarded by the cute. And once again, I have to say, this actress has some serious singing chops. Both the first piece and the last piece in this episode really got to me. I couldn't really say the same for this over-the-top visual spectacle in the middle of the episode, but that's probably because it's just not my thing. It's certainly a marvel for the animators to put on display, and I have to show my appreciation for their creativity, especially with the unicorn version of auto-tuning. The character of Ra-Ra, which is an adorable nickname by the way, is going through a very well-known story arc, complete with the overly stuck-up manager controlling every facet of her life. It would have been so easy to just keep him in the villain role the entire way through. And they did for the most part, but I do appreciate that a character like Rarity points out how difficult it can be to set up all this visual spectacle, and that the manager is focusing on what will make Ra-Ra popular in the long term. He isn't completely dismissed as a useless conflict character just to move the story along. And this sort of lesson really is worthwhile. Having enormous talent, even from an early age, often isn't enough to get you in the spotlight. And frequently, one has to adhere to creating a lasting image that will stay in the public mind far more than putting on an entertaining performance. But I really like how this episode shows that a popular image doesn't always mix so well with an inspiring example. It becomes so easy to forget what got you started in the first place when you're constantly surrounded by adoration. And I love seeing that this Ra-Ra had to make a choice. I can't imagine she would have allowed her life to become so controlled and so demanding unless there was a genuinely attractive element to it all. We may see this manager's actions as completely obvious, but you may be surprised how easy it becomes to convince yourself otherwise when you're handed everything you could possibly want on a daily basis. Ra-Ra did have to make a sacrifice in order to get back to her roots. And her overwhelming fear right before the final performance shows us even just a bit of why that choice can be harder than it first seems. Speaking of, I can't wait to see what the fan community does with this final song. I would love to hear this piece performed at future conventions and just feel the inspiration flowing throughout the crowd. Plus that final moment when the CMC joined in, I could feel my heart beaming. What a wonderful way to start closing out Season 5. Throw in some rather entertaining panic moments from Pinkie Pie throughout the story, a ton of callbacks to characters from previous episodes, and some absolutely fantastic music sure to leave a lasting impression. And I have to admit, even with a story conflict we've seen so many times before, the main attraction is a really solid episode I'm sure to come back to in the coming years. My sincere thanks to you, Amy, for coming up with such a memorable finale to your work on MLP. You've been a big part of the writing staff since all the way back in Season 1, and I wish you best of luck in your future stories. In the meantime, though, I would love to hear from each of you. What are your thoughts on this conflict of popularity and image? Are you hoping to see Ra-Ra make a return in future seasons? What was your favorite freakout moment from Pinkie Pie? Do you have any well wishes that you want to send to Amy Keating Rogers? I would like to hear your thoughts on the main attraction, and here's hoping the Season 5 finale ends this year with a bang. I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.